Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. This is Aromal from Bulwark Technologies, and I'm the product manager for SecurEnvoy. Along with me, Mr. Rich Smith is the pre-sales engineer from SecurEnvoy. And first of all, I thank you for all of your time to attend this wonderful session on SecurEnvoy. And we are going to discuss about the topic, is your password strong enough to protect your data and identity? So moving into this slide, just want to give a basic introduction on what are the topics which we are actually covering on this webinar. So we will have a small introduction about the company and the partnership with SecurEnvoy from Bulwark, and also we'll explain about the different backgrounds, and we'll explain about different positioning, and the multi-factor authentication and the capabilities of SecurEnvoy in the multi-factor authentication in terms of different use cases. And on the end of our presentation on the session, we have a dedicated question answer session. On that time, actually, you can have your queries and clarification on this particular technology. So moving into the next slide, I want to just give a small introduction about Bulwark and the partnership with SecurEnvoy. Bulwark is one of the award-winning specialized cybersecurity value-added distributor in this region. Bulwark started the operation in 1999. And we are celebrating our 20 successful years of cybersecurity excellence in this region. We are one of the privately held and profitable since we started. We represent 20 plus vendors in different technologies and their product and service in our portfolio. We are operating in GCC countries and India as well. We have 500 plus partners across both of the regions like GCC and India. We are partnered with SecurEnvoy since many years, and we are successfully celebrating that partnership. We have our dedicated sales, marketing, and technical team to support on SecurEnvoy for my customers, partners, and different entities. We have our certified technical engineers for SecurEnvoy from Bulwark for the pre-sales and post-sales activities on SecurEnvoy. So from this point, I'm just handing over to Rich to explain about SecurEnvoy and the different points and valuable things. Hi, Rich.
Hi, thank you very much, Aromal. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so SecurEnvoy have been a vendor in the multi-factor authentication sector for many, many years. We were established by a couple of employers from RSA who had a vision about where two-factor authentication should go, and that was back in 2003. We're an AIM-listed company. We're part of the Shearwater Group, who acquired SecurEnvoy about 2 years ago and injected a lot of capital into the business. So we're developing new technologies, which I'll run through later on in this session. We've got 8 global patents, 5 granted, 3 pending for our new exciting cybersecurity solutions we're about to introduce. And we have 2 Queen's Awards, one for innovation, and I believe the other was for export. So we're a long established company with many, many awards, many patents across our product. We're trusted by many, so we have a lot of different large, medium, small customers all around the world. Tata Steel is one of our large ones, John Lewis, a retail company in the UK, across many sectors, the NHS in the UK, lots of customers. So understanding the threat today, why we need MFA. For many years, I was a desktop technician going around fixing problems for people. And on a day-to-day basis, I could see many ways how that first factor of authentication could be breached. In as much as I used to have to go to some of the top execs, and because they were very, very busy and didn't want to have to sit with me whilst I fixed their laptops, their password was on a post-it note under their laptop, and these were the guys that had access to the most sensitive and important data within that organization. Poor passwords as well. Social engineering, I've been guilty of it in the past, maybe one of my kids' name followed by a number. Obviously, SecurEnvoy taught me not to do that anymore. Phishing attacks, where you receive an email with a link and they get your first credential, your username and your password, With our 2FA, they're not going to get into those protected resources. They've only got half of that two-factor authentication. Lost devices again, where maybe I've left my car on, my laptop on the train, on the backseat of my car, and someone's broken and stolen it. We've got an agent that can go onto a machine and can protect that credential provider with 2FA. So there's many ways that passwords can be, breached, and how we can protect them. So out of the box, our solution is a radius server. So we're able to protect VPNs and firewalls, your network access server, essentially, your usual suspects, Citrix and Netscale and Palo Alto, etc. We can protect many other technologies beyond those. We have a Microsoft Server Agent that you can install on a Windows machine. When you do that, it acts as a radius client and can be paired off our server, and we can look to protect various Microsoft technologies such as IIS. Good example here is, let's say, Microsoft Exchange, and you've got OA as an IIS portal. You install our agent on that Exchange server, you can protect OA with 2FA. It can also integrate with Microsoft Remote Desktop Services, so RD Gateway, RD Web Access, we can protect those with 2FA. Better still, it has an ADFS integration. So if you've got ADFS in your environment, you can install our server agent on your ADFS server, and where you've got claims apps such as Office 365, Google G Suite, Salesforce, to name but a few, we can protect those with that single sign-on and our two-factor authentication. So that's our Microsoft Server Agent. We also have a cloud offering. So traditionally, we've been an on-premise solution. We also now have, we launched it about 18 months ago, we have a cloud service, Authentication as a Service, where we as a vendor host our customers' SecurEnvoy service in the cloud in AWS. I'll go into a little more detail about that in a few slides time. So there's the opportunity to either install us on premise or have us manage it in the cloud as a service. We have a REST API, so this is typically can be used with a business to consumer website. So if you're either selling products or services to a third party, you could use our REST API to inject into that business to consumer account. We can create that second factor authentication account in a Microsoft lightweight directory services. And then when they come to log in, they'd be prompted for that 2FA. Again, I can go into a little more detail about that as well. We can protect Unix devices with SSH as well. Business continuity, a big one, very topical at the moment. This is an ICE solution where you potentially X amount of your users may not have access to the remote systems. What ICE allows us to do is if you can't get into the office, we can send out a message from our system saying office is closed, please log into whatever your VPN is, and it will provide them with that 6-digit code. So it's a business continuity solution. When people are allowed back in the office, we will then send them out another email. The benefit here, it doesn't use one of the licenses, the main secure access license it's a cheaper model, and it allows them to be able to log in the case of a pandemic or inclement weather, etc. Windows Login Agent, I mentioned earlier. I'll go into a little more detail about that later on in the presentation. Essentially, we can protect the logon via the credential provider. Secure password down here, slightly different offering. This is where we can protect the changing of your Active Directory passwords with two-factor authentication. It reduces the overhead of calls through to the service desk, and the experience here is a user, when they enroll, they'd answer 2 secret questions, and then they could go to the secure password portal and they could put in their AD username, authenticate with the token type of choice, which I'll run through all of the different token types we have, and then they'd answer that question. Then they'd go through to the portal and they could then change their AD password. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about the cloud offering and the on-premise. The on-premise solution, we don't require an underlying database to store our data. What we do is we harness something our customers have, which is Active Directory or an LDAP environment. If they don't have a full-blown AD domain controller, we can utilize a lightweight directory services, formerly known as ADAM. When you install our software, it creates a customer-specific encryption key, which we use to encrypt all of our data in and out of Active Directory to 2 AD attributes, primary telex number ever. It's all AES 256-bit encrypted, so very, very secure. Benefit of this is it's as resilient as Active Directory. You know, if you hopefully you've got multiple domain controllers, so you don't have to worry about replicating our data. It's already been done by Active Directory. Likewise, it'll be getting backed up. No need for a schema change either. So as and when we need the data, we'll be encrypting it and decrypting it in and out of those attributes. We can also harness other AD attributes such as the mobile number, the email address, and it makes for a nice automated deployment of our solution. There's no, because we've got that real-time bind with a service account to AD, your help desk or your IT staff don't need to create the users that are already there with that dynamic bind. Resilience, so very, very standard side. You can have high availability throughout our system. So you could have X amount of Windows login agents pointing at our servers. You could have many different network access servers, your firewalls, VPNs pointing at our servers, and they can be pointed at more than one SecurEnvoy server. You could have one, you could have 5. The license model, probably a good time to mention, it's not about how many agents you have installed or how many devices you have protected or how many SecurEnvoy servers. It's around how many managed users you have. So you could have 10 managed users, you know, logging in with 2FA to multiple technologies via 1 or 2 SecurEnvoy servers. Likewise, our server can be pointed at more than one domain controller for that high availability of that data repository that we use. Probably a good time to mention, a lot of our customers and opportunities are now looking to move Active Directory off-premise, so they're already synchronizing AD to Azure AD, looking to get rid of on-premise Active Directory in the future. So what we're doing, we're creating a universal directory, which is where we will be able to store our data. This will be able to synchronize with on-premise AD. It will also be able to synchronize with Azure AD and some of those underlying databases that may be used for your business to consumer models, your SQL, for example. So that's how we're future-proofing our solution for the eventuality that some people might not have a full-blown AD. That universal directory will also provide single sign-on. So the experience there, your staff or your customers would log in to our universal directory at the start of the day, then they'd get presented with a user portal with the apps that have been published to them, where they could then, you know, it would pass through that single sign-on. So that's the way the product is going, and it's currently being developed for that as well. As I mentioned earlier, our product is a radius server. So out of the box, you can protect many of these technologies, a vast amount more. And it's as simple as going on to the appliance itself, configuring a second authentication, a radius authentication, pointing at the IP address of our server with a shared secret. Likewise, going into our panel and our radius config, creating a new client configuration for, let's say, a checkpoint, putting in the IP address of the checkpoint and the same shared secret. And we have many integration guides on our website, and we've got a lot of customers using various different technologies. So very simple to use, just requires that initial setup. Cloud applications, I mentioned earlier about we can protect ADFS. So this slide basically shows the ADFS server here is configured for single sign-on with all of these claimed applications. There's many more that we can protect, and our customers are currently doing so. We're speaking to that SecurEnvoy server on-premise and perform that single sign-on with LDAP as well. Authentication service. So this is our cloud where we manage it ourselves. High availability provided through AWS servers. So we've got a couple of stacks currently with sitting behind AWS load balancers with many SecurEnvoy servers for that high availability. One of the benefits, lower cost of entry, no need to spin up VM or VM license or physical machines. If you don't have VMs, you don't need to buy that server license, so it negates the cost for that. Zero maintenance costs for customers. So the two ones that I could bring to mind are when we release our updates, our upgrades, we're going to be doing it on a more agile basis, introducing functionality at a more frequent rate. You won't need to worry about updating your on-premise servers. We will be updating that software in our cloud environment. Another benefit is Patch Tuesday or patch every Tuesday, it seems to be at the moment. Microsoft updates, we will be doing that. You won't need to do it on your on-premise solution. When we looked at designing our new cloud offering, we saw that a lot of people didn't have ADFS and didn't want to install it. So we used the opportunity to create our own security token service as an alternative to ADFS, our own identity provider. In the first release, we have support for Office 365 underlying framework, supports SAML 2, open or we're approached by a came to us and said, we want to 2FA Salesforce with your cloud identity provider. Our developers would look at the specific set of claims for Salesforce and using this underlying framework would create that application. So we've got a nice agile process for adding new applications to our identity provider. Mentioned earlier about per customer encryption when you install it on premise. In the cloud, when we spin up an instance for our customers, it's a per customer encryption. So all of the data, and it's obviously in their on-premise AD, it's all encrypted per their encryption key. There's complete isolation throughout the cloud solution as well. This is the architecture behind the cloud. So we're sitting up here in AWS. We're using the on-premise AD until Universal Directory is available, and we're potentially protecting these Radius devices, your NetScalers, your Palo Alto on-premise. Do we expect people to open the ports, the LDAP or LDAPs or Radius ports to our server sitting up here in the cloud? Absolutely not. So we created a connector agent that sits on premise on a server or servers for high availability. And what this will do, it will talk LDAPs, Radius to these appliances, and then it will broker it across TLS 443 to our server in the cloud. So we've got an encrypted tunnel. When we create the instance, we based on a few bits of information, the license key, customer name, account number, etc. We create an auth API key, which we inject into here. So we've got this nice encrypted tunnel, and we've also got the added security that who is talking to us is who we think it should be. Authentication types. So these are our current token types that we offer. Voice call, a reasonably niche requirement. The end user experience here is I would log into a protected resource, which I've mentioned earlier. Let's say NetScaler again. I put in my AD username, I put in my password. It would then display 6 digits on the screen, and our system would phone a predefined number with an automated message saying please put in your 6 digits onto the key from the screen onto the keypad. As soon as you do, you're logged in. So that's a slightly different way of logging in. We sort of flipped the coin on its head. SMS, these were our first token types. This is where you'll receive that 6-digit one-time passcode on your mobile phone. Real time was our first flavor of this. This is where I wouldn't receive the code till I'd put my first credentials in, my first factor. Problem with this, back in the day, probably 5-10 years ago, poor mobile reception. You might be waiting, 1 or 2 minutes to receive that code. So we developed and patented, this is one of our patents, SMS preload. So at the time you get enabled on system, you will receive your one-time passcode in advance of needing to use it. As soon as you use it, you will receive the next code. So that gets around the potential latency of receiving the real-time text. Email, exactly the same as SMS, but over SMTP to a Outlook or another MAPI client. These are very good. There is a cost with SMS. You need to source out a third-party web SMS gateway provider. So we have also developed soft token applications. There's one available for PC, one available for Mac. It sits in the system tray of those operating systems. Better still, we have smartphone apps. And the benefit of these, well, a couple of benefits: very, very secure, and there's no operational costs where there are with SMSs. So they're free to download from the main 3 vendors: iOS, Android, and still Windows Mobile. And there's no, like I say, they're free to use, free to download, very, very secure, which I can show you in a few slides' time. We support push notifications, which allows for a very, very seamless, easy to use end user experience. We can also lock each individual token on the smartphone app, and it will use the underlying OS technology to unlock the tokens. So for instance, if you use facial recognition to unlock your phone, the soft token will be unlocked with your face, or it will fall back to biometrics and then to PIN, depending on what your phone has been configured to use. So for many years, as my colleagues at Bulwark will tell you, we have been around, Ethos has been around tokenless token types. We had a requirement on several occasions to have a physical token for secure units, for instance, where you're not allowed to take your mobile device in, because you could record videos, take pictures, and potentially steal intellectual property. So our current solution is a YubiKey. It's a keyboard device. Plug it into the USB port, push a button when you're focused in 6 digits, and we will broker that authentication to the cloud. We also have a second offering now for a complete offline experience. It's in the form of a hardware token, and it is literally the size of a credit card, so it fits nicely in your wallet. There's two options available, one with biometric support, one without. So the token, the screen's locked until you want to get the 6-digit code from the EPD screen, and you'll just scan your fingerprint in and it would display the 6 digits. And there's no need for an internet connection here. And you don't, obviously, where maybe USB ports are tied down as well, locked. So this could be used in those scenarios as well. Completely time-based one-time passcode offline. Automatic user group provisioning. So as we bind to Active Directory, what we have is functionality where we can monitor an AD group, and if we see any unmanaged users in that AD group, we will either send them an enrollment SMS or an enrollment email, and they can then log it into the Manage My Token portal and authenticate or enroll to their token type of choice. So if you've got 1,000 users, you could add those 1,000 users to an AD group, and our system would automatically send them that invitation to the Manage My Token portal. So you wouldn't need to have to enable them through the console. Mobile device registration. I'm going to give a demo straight after this slide, so I won't dwell on it too much. Simple 3-step process. Copyright protection. We've got a mechanism built in, which I'll talk you through when I go into the actual demo. Split seed record, so half of the seed record was generated on the server and it's all stored in those LDAP attributes, AES 256-bit encrypted. Second part of seed record is based on the fingerprint of the phone, so it will report back details about some of its hardware. So if somebody were to gain or take a screen grab of that QR code, no good to them because it's based on the fingerprint of my phone. And again, as I mentioned, all encrypted. So if I jump out and go to our console. So this is our on-premise version 9 console. The cloud looks very, very similar. We did that for a reason. A lot of our customers have been using version 9, which we changed quite dramatically. We updated the look and feel. People like it. So we didn't want any new experience, them to experience a new interface. It's all the same as it was. So what I'm going to do here is simply enable a user. So I can scroll down via a filter. Apologies, user error. I tried to create a user rather than search for it. So there we go. And user enroll one. And access to this console has various levels of role-based access control that we can see here. So I'm going to just enable them. You can see it's pulled in some attributes there, so there's no need to pre-populate them or populate them. And I'm going to say soft token type. And that's all I needed to enable that user. We could see, just to dip into the log view, everything I'm doing is being audited within our log view. If I go to my emails, there we go, it's already reached me. And all of our portals are protected with our own 2FA. So I'm going to click on this link. It's pre-populated my username, so I'm going to put in my first factor, my AD username, my AD password. I'm going to log in, and that was the 6-digit I copied from my enrollment email. So I'm going to paste that in there. And we can see here, I'm allowed to either self-enroll to an SMS or token type. You can very much control this. You may not want people to be able to self-enroll to SMS. So you could go into our console and untick allow users to self-enroll. So there's a lot of controls around that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to follow this 3-step process. I'm going to install the app, which I've already done on my phone, over to the left. Ignore all the tokens I've already got on there. I've got many test ones. You'll see a new one at the bottom. So I'm going to add the plus button. I'm going to scan the QR code. There we go. That was the enrollment process. That second part was my phone reporting back some of the details of its fingerprint. So if Aromal or any of my other colleagues were on the call and tried to scan that, no good to them. Only half the seed records in the app, only the first part is in the app, at any given time. As and when it's needed, it's loaded from memory based on the hardware. As soon as it's used, it's watermarked, so that and any previous tokens can't be used. So that's as easy as it gets for enrolling. Now I've enrolled, I'm going to refresh my session cookie just to show you the push notification experience. So again, this will be any protected resource that supports 2-step, I should say. Hit enter there, and there to the left, it's hit my phone. I'm happy it's me that started that login process, so I'm through to the technology that I protected. Just to show you that in a real world scenario, this is our Office 365 domain, which we federated with our own identity provider that we developed for the cloud. So it's automatically picked up that we've been federated with our cloud. So again, my first factor. There we go, to the left. I'm happy it's me. It should talk us through the process. There we go, we take it to your application, and I'm through to that underlying technology, which is a real world one, which is Office 365, and I can then use those applications. What happens when I come to sign out? Is it going to present me with the single factor of Microsoft and where I can bypass 2-factor? Absolutely not. We completely flush ourselves out of the system. So if I was to go back to that resource, I'm going to have to 2FA again. So there's no backdoor to any of that. So let's go back to the presentation. So that's the enrollment process. Very, very simple, very, very secure, very, very easy for your staff and your customers to use without that smartphone app and the push notifications. And as I say, you can also choose to lock those as well and protect it with biometrics. Mentioned earlier about the server agent and where we can protect OA, RD Gateway and other Office apps. This is on-premise for ADFS. Obviously, we've got our own identity provider in the cloud. Windows Login Agent. So you could choose to install this on your desktop clients or your server farm. And what this would do is a credential provider. So we then can look to protect the lock screen and or the logon and or the lock screen. Do you want to protect the console or RDP? So you may choose, I don't want to protect somebody physically at the machine because they've had to swipe into a secure building. It's totally, each individual customer can choose which of those, but we do offer that sort of granularity to the functionality. AD groups as well, you can have an AD group where members do have to 2FA, non-members don't, and vice versa. So you could add maybe an AD group where all of your IT staff are a member of, so if their usernames were to get breached, you could say members of this group on this server have to 2FA, so someone's got their credentials, they're not getting in because they haven't got that second factor, and hopefully they haven't got interactive logon either. So that's the Windows logon agent. Emergency help desk. So this is the option here where you can either, let's say I've left my phone at home where I get my one-time passcode sent to, or it's got my smartphone app. I can either, as an IT manager, I can say, well, let's make them log a call with the help desk. Alternately, you can use our emergency help desk, which again, at the time you enroll to the system, much like Secure Password, you'd answer 2 secret questions. So let's say I've left one of my phones at home, but I have my personal phone. I could log into the emergency help desk and I could specify, please send that one-time passcode to this alternate number. Alternately, if I've left my phone at home, which has got my smartphone app, I could say, let's use a temporary code. I'd specify that temporary code for 1 day because I know I'm going to go home and I'm going to pick up my smartphone and I'm going to say device not lost. For that 1 day, I can use that temp code. I'll then receive an email when that temp code has expired saying, please revert back to using your previous token type, which I could do. So it reduces the overhead of support call to your help desk. So it's totally up to each individual customer whether they want to enable it or whether they want the help desk to do it from that console that I showed you. Password reset, mentioned earlier, but one thing I didn't say was, as well as that IIS portal where you can change ready password, you can also do it through the logon screen as well. You can change it there with our 2FA. Migration, there's 2 scenarios here. The first is where a customer has never had MFA in their environment before. The second is maybe where they've got a third-party provider already there and are looking to replace that third party with SecurEnvoy. First one, where they don't have any MFA already in place. Let's say you want to protect your NetScaler, picking on NetScaler again. You could enable it and manage, let's say 20 users out of 100. Those 20 users log into that server, they've got their token, and so they can go through that 2FA process. The other 80, they hit the server, are they going to get prompted for 2FA? They can be added to an AD group, and what happens when they log into that device, it looks at them and say, okay, you're unmanaged in SecurEnvoy, and you're also a member of this AD group, and it will say, I'm not going to prompt you for 2FA. You know, because you can't achieve that. You're not a managed user. Day 2, you could have added those 80 other users to the AD group that's being monitored by our system. They get enabled automatically. They're enrolled to their token type of choice. So they hit the server. They're now managed. So they no longer meet that criteria. And we will enforce that 2-factor authentication. So there's a nice staggered and staged way of deploying the software. Likewise, for where maybe, let's say, RSA or another third-party provider already in place, what we do, unmanaged users that hit our solution, we will broker them through to those third-party servers until a time when they are managed, do have a token, so can authenticate, they hit the appliance, and it will say, SecurEnvoy, you're now going to do that 2FA. So they're the 2 migration types that can be used. Authentication for an API, I mentioned earlier, business to consumer. Good example of this is a bank site that we mocked up. We're not interested in the first factor that can potentially be done by a SQL database. We're interested in the second factor. So when they sign up for banking on bank XYZ, it's clever enough to see that they don't have a 2FA account in our system, and what it will do, it will invite them, and we've called it a just-in-time, where they can enroll to it. So it's seen that they're not enabled in our system or don't have an account in it, and it will invite them then to either enroll to SMS and push notifications, and they'd go through that same process that I just demoed a minute ago. Next time they want to go into their bank account, it will see that they do have 2FA, and it will then enforce that second factor, whether it be an accepting a push notification or enter in, the 6 digits if they enrolled to an SMS one-time passcode. Integration customization. So this is where a lot of our customers are already doing it. All of our tokens, including the Manage My Token portal, are written in fairly standard basic HTML, so they can change all of those portals with their own branding, their own corporate color schemes, etc. Likewise, the soft token app, which I showed you on my screen, they can change, the color scheme, they can change the company name there as well. So this is all about SecurEnvoy strategy, where we're going in the upcoming months. We've been a MFA provider, said it probably several times on demo, coming on 20 years now. We've seen a need for a lot of our customers and a lot of our potential opportunities that we need to broaden our cybersecurity portfolio. So what we're doing this is to complement and work alongside our multi-factor authentication. We already have today a data loss prevention solution. Includes data discovery, data classification. It's got a lot of benefits over a lot of the other solutions that are out there. It monitors the data both in transit, motion, and static. So where you might be shipping it out of SharePoint. So we offer that already today. We're also developing an IAM solution, Identity Access Management, Privileged Account Management, and CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker. This will have, and this is one of our own acronyms rather than these trade ones, an Intelligent Reporting Anomaly Detection System. And what this will do, it will bind all of these other solutions together. And what it will do, based on 3 different bits of information, it will create a risk based on user behavior. So the 3 elements are user behavior, machine behavior, and data behavior. So let's say Rich is logging in from the same location day in, day out, either from the office or whilst I'm working at home. During COVID-19, I'm getting an IP address from my ISP, and this IRAD system will be monitoring that, and it will also see what device I'm logging in, an HP laptop, it will probably know the MAC address, certain other bits of information around that machine as well. It will also see on a day-to-day basis the data sets. The data sets I'm looking at, typically pre-sales and maybe a bit of support, maybe a bit of marketing. It will also be monitoring what time of day I'm logging in. So for instance, I'm pretty much 9 till 5:30, and it will create a risk based on all of those 3 elements. The next day, let's say I decide to go and work from somewhere slightly sunnier from where I am. Once lockdown's over, I might decide to jump on a plane and go and work for a nice sunny beach somewhere. So what it would do, it would reassess based on my IP address, my geolocation, and there's various other elements beyond just the geolocation of the IP address that are factor into this to get a true location identity, where there's various ways you can mask your actual IP, maybe via VPN is the classic one. Let's say I've also decided to log in from an iPad because I couldn't be bothered carrying my heavy HP laptop down to this lovely sunny beach. Let's say I'm now looking at a different set of data. It's going to reassess, it's going to, all based on those 3 things, it's going to reassess that risk, and it's going to say either, and again this will be configured, it's going to say deny access. Rich is going to have to phone up the help desk and explain why he's got this IP address, why he's using this device, why he's trying to access HR data, for example. Or you can alternatively, you can just increase the level of multi-factor authentication. You can make it more aggressive. So this is the direction we're going in the future. We're already developing this. And like I say, we've already released the DLP. That is the end of the slide deck. So Aromal, do you want to see if there's any questions at all, or anything anyone would like to see?
Okay, guys, if you have any kind of clarifications and any kind of questions, you can just write on the chat box and we will answer on that.
If there's no, I'm happy to show anything in the console, or I saw something pop up about the password manager. Let's see if I can see where it was. Yeah. If you want to ask, so what it is, it's not a password manager. It's a way of protecting changing the password with two-factor authentication. No. Yeah, no, I thought that was going to be the question. No, it doesn't save your password. It doesn't generate them. It's not a password manager in the way, let's say, CyberArk is. It's just protecting changing that password with two-factor authentication.
We'll share my contact details also in the end of the presentation, so you can just shoot all the concerns and queries on related to this particular technology and product. We will help you out at any time. So myself, Aromal, and Rach, and my technical engineers, Mr. Deepu, Jervin, there are a lot of resources out there to help you on all the queries which you're having on the multi-factor authentication. So if anyone doesn't have any other queries, then we can just wind up the section. So thanks for joining us, all of you. And this is my contact details. My name is Aromal, and my email address and my mobile number. So if you can just shoot all the queries which you have related to this particular product, we'll help you at any time. And thank you for your wonderful time. Thank you, Rich, especially your time and effort to give the in-depth knowledge about this particular technology. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining.